Good afternoon. Want to call to order the February 23rd, 2007 meeting of the Sacramento Public Library Authority, and welcome all who've joined with us here in the chambers today, and all those who are viewing either live or in the repeat broadcast. And with that, we'll go ahead and get started with the roll and have Linda read into the minutes the statement that precedes our business meeting, and then we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance following that. So, Linda, would you please call the roll?
Darrell Wu, Linda Budge, Phil Cerna.
Here.
Jeff Slowey.
Here.
Rick Jennings.
Here.
Don Natoli.
Here.
Jay Chenier. Susan Peters.
Here.
Angelique Ashby.
Here.
Sue Frost.
Here.
Eric Guerra. Lori Hewer.
Here.
Alan Warren.
We have a quorum, correct? Yep. Okay.
This meeting of the Sacramento Public Library Authority is being videotaped in its entirety and will be cablecast without interruption on Metro Cable 14, the Government Affairs channel, on the Comcast Consolidated Communications and AT&T Uverse cable systems, and will be webcast at www.sacmetrocable.tv. Today's meeting is being shown live and will be repeated at 4 p.m. Saturday, February 25th. On Channel 14. This meeting is closed caption. A DVD copy will be available for checkout from any library branch no later than 2 weeks following today's meeting. A public copy of the full agenda, including reports, is available for viewing at the back table and is available on the library website at www.saclibrary.org. Members of the audience wishing to address the board should complete a speaker identification form located at the back table and give it to the clerk. Please speak into the microphone when addressing the board and state your name for the record. Comments are limited to 3 minutes so that everyone may be heard. In consideration of others, please silence your cell phone at this time.
Okay, thank you, Linda, for the announcements. And if you would please join Board Member Jennings leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Jennings. And with that, we'll then go to our public comment on matters not on the agenda. I don't have anyone signed up to speak, but this is now the opportunity for anyone who desires to address the body today. And seeing no one come forward, then we'll move on down to item number 3, presentations. And Linda, do we have any presentations?
No, we do not, Chair Natoli.
My gosh. Nobody reading poetry, nobody singing to us, nobody presenting big checks.
That would be Congress.
Oh, there you go. Okay, so tune in to C-SPAN. You can see whatever you want to see. So, okay, with that then, let's move down to our director's report. And Rivka, turn to you.
Thank you. I'll refer the board to my written report, just a couple of additions, the first of which, by now you've all heard that Denise has announced her retirement and her exciting move to Indiana to be the Director of Strategic Initiatives for the Allen County Library. But we have a little time before we get to say goodbye, and we'll be keeping you informed about the dancing and celebrating.
The party stuff, yeah, okay.
She'll be doing an interpretive dance for us before she leaves.
Okay.
But it's been, she's done so much for the library system in the 6.5 years she's been here. She leaves a big hole. So we're sorry to see her go, but glad that she'll be closer to family, because as I've discovered in my 7.5 years here, that's kind of what it's all about. So a couple of other things. Last month, employee Dar Cohen spoke to the board. Then Chair Jennings asked him to follow up with a letter. That letter was received in today's mail, actually, and it's on the dais with you. And we'll be doing some follow-up as well. And then finally, it's with great gratitude that we thank you again for the fine forgiveness initiative. And so far, as of yesterday, we've received 2,100 items back. No, I'm sorry. Almost 2,800 items back, and we've waived $21,000 in fines. The best item, and I actually meant to bring it and walked out without it, was a book that was due on December 18th, 1969. Some of us were still in high school.
Yes. Yes.
Or not even born.
Or not born.
Yeah, somewhere you're
Exactly.
born, yeah, probably.
I spoke to a reporter today who's really interested in what we're doing and wants to do a nice TV story about it, and I said, you probably weren't born in 1969, and he said, no, I was born in 1985, and that made me feel very old.
What was the book? What was the book on again?
The book was 3 Days Before the Mast by Dana. And it was and we're getting great stories, literally people bursting into tears of gratitude when they bring the items back and we say, all is forgiven, welcome back to the library.
You just can't check anything out for the next 5 years, but you can come here.
But it's actually a feel-good story, and we're getting them from all over, from Isleton to branches here in the city to out. And I was in Rancho Cordova all day yesterday and had a wonderful encounter with a dad who is deaf and his daughter who was interpreting, and I was waving their fines, and he was so excited, and she was a typical teenager kind of going, yes, and she was interpreting while he was really thanking me, and very emotional and effusive, and it was adorable to see the two of them. So thank you. I just want to thank you again, because I know it was a difficult decision. We have followed up with innovative interfaces regarding the concerns that were expressed, and we'll keep you posted. So they understand our distress with their lack of action, and we will keep you posted. So I'm happy to answer questions.
Okay, any questions or comments by board members on Rivka's report? Well, that's good news in lots of respects, and we're glad folks are able to return long overdue items, but I think the stories around that, and I know a couple of the articles I've seen, or at least one, that people talked about, kind of feeling that they were, banned from the library. That wasn't the case. We don't identify folks by something they got at home unless we know they took it home. So again, but I just think it's kind of a point of renewal, and it's important, and again, hopefully others will continue to follow suit as well. So, Mr. James? No. Okay. Well, very good then. With that, if there's no other questions or comments, we'll go to our information items, and I don't know if there's any member of the board wish to pull any item off. I'm going to note, though, on item 8, there was interest expressed by one board member who was unable to be here today, maybe others as well. So if it's okay with the members, we would just hold that over, and Rivka could bring that back next meeting. All right. So we have 5, 6, and 7 that are information. Any questions about those? Okay, moving right along then, Linda. That's good. So then we'll go to our consent items, and I'll have Linda read those into the record, please.
Information.
No, consent. Well, I think information, I think we're okay. Just read the consent. We went right through information, so I'll just go to the consent calendar.
All right. Consent 9.0, action summary, January 26, 2017. Item 10.0, contract approval, cleaning services, All Solutions Cleaning, Inc. Item 11.0, contract approval, security services, Securitas Security Services, USA, Inc.
Okay, thanks, Linda.
Chair Natoli, I'd
Yes.
move the items.
Okay, we have a motion by Member Slowey. We have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Member Jennings. Any questions on any of the consent items? Seeing none, then I know when it's time to speak on the consent calendar. Then we'll call for a voice vote. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Any recusals? Seeing none, motion's approved. And we will note that item 8 on information will come back next meeting. Okay, that takes us to our one and only action item for today. And Linda, you can go ahead and read that in the record if you would, please.
Item 12.0, mid-year budget update and position control, fiscal year 16-17.
Okay. Denise.
Okay, so I don't have a formal presentation, but I do want to review what's in your board packet.
All right.
Most of the adjustments are fairly minor, and the first one comes on the county side, and this is an adjustment due to our underestimating revenue coming in from the county, because the prior year had been fairly robust and we used a similar percentage. So we were off by about $100,000. So there's a reduction on the county side. City revenue we expect to come in as anticipated. Library Galleria, it's the rental space that we have in our central library. The rental contracts are up a little bit, so we're increasing that revenue by $25,000 through the end of this fiscal year. And we had an insurance reimbursement from a break-in at our Valley High Library last spring. We finally got the reimbursement for that, so you'll see that as new revenue. And then gifts and donations, which the board has already approved incrementally. The total of that is about $192,000 that comes in as revenue. On the expenditure side, we have increased expenditures with the arcade refresh project. We're working with the county on that, and as they bid the work, contracts are coming in higher than we had anticipated, so we're asking to increase that budget by $250,000. And we're also asking for another $45,000 for an exterior fence. It looks like the county will pay for that, but we're not sure when the project will start, so we may need cash on hand to begin that project in advance of the county covering those expenses. The other issue that we have is with our Franklin Library, the water damage to the building. We're still working with the insurance adjusters. They have about 14 boxes of material that they're trying to restore. We still don't know the condition of those. So pending that, we'll either, that will be covered by the insurance, or we may have to replace materials. The other issue we don't know because of the nature of the water damage, because it was mostly humidity, is that mold may have formed in the books and we're not seeing it yet, so we're holding cash just in case we identify more materials that have to be removed from the collection. That'll eventually go into the claim, but we'll need some cash to begin buying those materials for replacement. And this is in addition to what we already budget for books and materials, so this is a specified amount of money. The reason the cost is shared across all the funds is that our books and materials float. So it isn't, even though the branch is in the county side, it's an expense that hits all the libraries, so we're spreading those costs. The total value of the current collection is about $700,000. We're holding about $350,000, or we're asking to have that available in case we need to spend it. Again, I don't know that we will, but we'd rather have the buffer and approval in case we have to. The other issue is underestimating salary costs. This comes largely from looking at, because when we do the budget, we use prior year estimates, and we use that for our modeling, and we underestimated on some of the salaries. So we're off by about $350,000. And this primarily hits the city side. There is some impact on the county side, but most of the impact is on the city side. We also have increased in services and supplies. This comes from deferred maintenance. So one of the things we're doing is the arcade library is being refreshed. We're taking all of those visitor chairs out and we're redoing them. We're recovering them and refinishing them. And then we're going to reallocate them to another library. So we need about $46,000 to do that restoration, and then we'll repurpose the chairs elsewhere. Replacement of the chairs would be considerably higher than $46,000. So we're actually saving the library quite a bit of money there. So balancing the capital outlay on the arcade library, again, about $250,000 in expense, so it's balancing the revenue request, and another $45,000 for the fence is a set aside. The biggest impact that we're seeing in the budget is, of course, in the city general fund, and because we're using more because we cost allocate and there are elements of the costs that are hitting the city general fund, it's eating into the reserve, the economic uncertainty reserve. So where we started the year with about an 8% economic uncertainty reserve request, normally it's 10, and the board approved in September an 8% on that. We're now eating into that reserve to cover the expenses, so we're actually hitting at about 5% of economic uncertainty reserve in the city general fund. Concern there is that at the end of the fiscal year, we'll have depleted the unrestricted, unreserved funds on the city side. We won't know for sure until the audit's completed, but we're anticipating we'll just about be out of cash there. And the other adjustment is the revenue in for fines and fees goes out as expenses into books and materials through the donations and gifts that came in. The other item we have is position control. In December, the board approved a position control report that adjusted for a 0.5 FTE. We had an incumbent in a position. We were waiting to see if that incumbent would accept a lateral position. They did. So for a period of time, we had an extra 0.5 FTE on the books because we had a person in a position and a vacancy. With that transfer, we're able to eliminate the half-time position, so position control goes back down to by 0.5. With the city general fund, what we're doing now, because that's our biggest issue moving forward, is we've accelerated our budget planning process on the library side to help the city finance staff have really solid estimates when they go into their budget process, with an expectation that having that information, hopefully we'll get the funding that we need to operate on July 1. I want to remind the board that when staff come back to you in May with our preliminary budget, we have to bring to you a balanced budget, and the erosion of the reserve on the general fund side is a problem. We're spending about $1 million in reserve on the general fund side, so the city needs to make that up. Not even taking into consideration that we won't have an economic uncertainty reserve, but just to cover expenses. And if they're unable to do that, then we will be bringing a reduced budget back to the board in May for a July 1 authorization, so that the library can spend at the start of its fiscal year. So we're still waiting on county estimates for property tax, so we can do our planning for that, but we're hoping to have that in the next few weeks. So we're hoping that by mid-March, about a month earlier than usual, we will have a preliminary budget ready so that the city has the data that they need. So staff is requesting that you approve the adjustments in the budget as presented, and that the director has the authority to execute the budget. Other questions?
Okay, thank you, Denise. Let me turn to my colleagues here. Any questions about the budget report? Yeah, Director Sloy.
Not really a question, but just a comment. The audit committee met and had heard this before, and we did have a discussion, particularly around the expenditure of the additional money for salaries. And, you know, anytime you do forecasting, it's somewhat of a guesstimate. So, you know, from my end, I just wanted to make sure where the estimate was off, that going forward, it's, I don't want to say fixed, but included going forward. So that, rest assured, that has been done, and the numbers are what they are, but I would expect not to see the same issue going forward, so at least that's been addressed. But at this point, kind of needs to be spent because people need to get paid. So.
Okay. Thank you for comments. Any other comments and/or questions from members? If not, then we have this as an action item here today. I have no one signed up to speak on it. Anyone in the audience wish to address this item? All right, seeing none, then a motion and a second will be in order.
I'll move the item, sir.
Okay, moved by Director Slowey. We have a second? Second. Seconded by Director Warren. Nothing further, then please vote. There we have it. Okay, motion approved. It takes us down then to the reports, ideas, questions from board members. So turn to my right. Anyone here on my right? Any other thoughts, comments? My left? Anyone? All right, we're going to get out of here before 3:25. So with that, we move to adjournment. Next board meeting will be Thursday, March 23rd, 3 o'clock here in these chambers. And if there's nothing coming before the body, then we will stand in adjournment. I'll have a good rest of the day.